Carlton King, the former Scotland Yard Special Branch and MI6 officer and the author of Black Ops.
I was undercover for Special Branch in a jihadi organisation.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy Podcast, the show that shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, but actually majors on everything, because that's geopolitics. And that's what all those other areas, national security, secret intelligence, etc., function into. It's that kind of hidden depth of what goes on outside of what the norm is. And so what I like to do is bring on guests who have that understanding of the outside world, the one that actually makes most of us function or directs us in certain ways. And this is why I like to have my partner in crime on, and I've got her back on today, Firgas Esack, because as a journalist, she has that view that you listen to. You don't listen to us in the world of secret intelligence, you listen to her in the world of journalism. Now, how she got what she got sometimes is motivated by what we do and what the politicians provide. So there's that angle to it. And today I want to work on a really strong subject because, as you know, if you listen to the show quite often, I say to Fergus, surprise me, give me something, and let's deal with it relatively raw. So I've got another guest on as well, and I hope Fergus is going to introduce Sally. I'll just give you the word Sally and tell you Sally's perspective as well. So Fergus, thank you very much for being on again today. What have you got for me?
Well, so now, normally, I do bring it as a surprise. Normally I do drop this, don't I? Normally I do drop this and you've got no idea. But this time, and I'll just share this for your listeners, Carlton sent me this video, this YouTube video on WhatsApp, right? And it's a video. It's a video that I think when the show goes live, we could put into the show notes so that if you haven't seen it, you could see it. Now, I hadn't seen it at the time. Now, it's a YouTube clip, and it's created by a technology company called Hanson. And it's a debate. It's Hanson Robotics, right? It's a debate between two robots that they've built called Han and Sophia. So a male identifying robot and a female identifying robot. Now, this video was created in 2017 for an event, a conference called Rise. And they asked these two robots to debate the future of humanity. So they were talking about ethics. They were talking about, their role in society, but speaking in their own AI words, created words. So we are going to talk about that. We are going to talk about this. And
that's what you're throwing on me, is it? Okay, okay.
So it wasn't me that dropped it because you shared the clip with me. But what I am dropping on you is, now your listeners might know that I run a communications agency called DAPS, and I love the free-flowing conversations that we have every day in DAPS between all of our team. This is we call it bringing the magic, but we have these amazing conversations, and actually that's how not only do we get not only do we deliver great results for clients, but we also we also find out wonderful things about each other. Sally has been a journalist for 25 years plus, I think. I don't want to put numbers into this.
Plus,
she's one of our publicity team. She's also a journalist and a copywriter for us. But one of the things that I love about Sally, like there is never a time when having a meeting or a conversation with Sally doesn't make me smile, because she is expert in equal parts the future of the universe, well-being, and Love Island. and all of these things I feel will be relevant to this particular podcast episode. So I'm going to let Sally introduce herself, but I'm just going to preface this by saying there are lots of people in the world of podcasting who would say that having multiple people on a podcast record is essentially podcast suicide. I'm going to challenge that, because we have multiple person online conversations 10 times a day in our remote working agency, and I love it. So I'd like to feel like we're breaking a few rules in the podcasting landscape, as I think we quite often do. But I'm hoping this is going to work. So without further ado, I'm going to let Sally Brockway introduce herself.
thank you, Fergus. And hello, I'm Sally Brockway. I do have 30 plus years experience as a journalist, I'm afraid to say. I am also a publicist. I work alongside Fergus. I'm an author. I'm a blogger. And I'm kind of obsessed with wellness, the universe, the law of attraction, manifesting, aliens, ghosts, what happens after we die, etc., etc. And Love Island, of course, which is just as fascinating. So that's me in a nutshell.
That's brilliant.
So look, I'm just gonna sort of paraphrase this video clip, because it's our sort of starter for 10. I think one of the things that surprised me, and as I say, until you shared it, Carlton, I hadn't seen it. But one of the things that really surprised me was the robots have obviously, they are debating. They're debating, but the debate, the technology for the debate is fueled by AI, but neither robot knows what each other's going to say.
Correct.
But what's very interesting to me, that they've built them as an identifying male robot and an identifying female robot, is that the first thing they do pretty much is lay into each other. I mean, it's supposed to be a debate, but the first thing they do is, the female one starts throwing chippy comments at the male one.
Well, let me say something on that, because this is actually quite important. More than the actual gender of the robot, what's important is how new each robot is. So she actually says something like, "I'm the latest model." So in other words, the one-upmanship is that she's superior to the other guy. And that in itself showed me something. In fact, I'll be truthful to you, that frightened me, because what it said to me was, the whole point of this is that robots are not sentient beings. That robots using AI, so the actual brain part of it using AI. So you've got the robotics, which if you haven't seen it, it's fantastic. The face shapes, moves and everything. If you see them now, they're even better. But the actual brain element thereof is meant to not be sentient. It's just meant to be capable in terms of it can search the internet very, very quickly and come up with answers to the questions you give it. Now, what is now worse is what they're now doing. If you've heard of a thing called, and they put it up for fun in a strange, no, not for fun, that would be a wrong thing to say. People may well have heard of Chat GPT, because it's big and it's gone all over the place. And basically what it does is and it's in its beta phase, which means, for those who are not familiar, is in a testing phase. So they've opened it up for everybody to utilize. And I think within the first, I think I'm correct in saying this, in the first week it was opened up to be utilized, it already had something like 10 million subscribers. I think I'm right in saying that. 1 week. I mean, incredible figures. But what it is it's called generative predictive text, because it was started off with text, now it's spoken. So generative predictive text. So what this robot actually does is it isn't searching the internet now anymore. So this is your 2017 was searching the internet. Today's guys are basically, they've been taught certain things. They've then learnt certain things themselves. So when you actually ask it a question, it's not searching the internet for the answer necessarily. It's searching its own understanding, its own database within its own mind. And it comes up with its own answers. Now,
and funnily enough, actually, Carlton, I'm just going to interject quickly. I'm just going to say that there's an advertising agency that this week's announced that they are actually going to take on and respond to creative briefs using this.
Correct. Because one of the fears was, as it came out about 2-3 years back now, it's 2020. Yeah, it's 2020 it came out, was that, frankly, nobody with any money would now do their own homework. You basically just tell it what you want to do and it writes it for you better than you ever could. Right? So, example, and that goes for any examination process. So this is where we are with this. The company that makes it is called OpenAI, and it was a non-for-profit. And this is what I found quite interesting. It started off as a not-for-profit agency, right? It was going to be, and it's called OpenAI because it was going to put all of the systems that allowed it to function, i.e. the algorithms, etc., it was going to put them all openly so everybody can see it. Guess what happened? You know what I'm going to say, don't you? From 2015 of it being open, all of a sudden, Google put in like 1 billion and others, and all of a sudden, it's no longer that open anymore. Because business has seen what you can do with it. So now, what used to be something that everybody can utilize, and still can, but the resultants thereof, the potential thereof for money making, etc., is now being controlled and kept as a company secrets. So this is the interesting thing now, you see. So this is where we get this generative AI that now starts thinking, how do I make money? And I think it goes all the way around with AI, not just on this. Now, this is why it's interesting that Sally's on, who is a great fan, and I noticed she said UFO, etc. So you're sort of down that line of robotics probably taking over, maybe. What are your thoughts on this, Sally? Because I can see how AI can be absolutely brilliant for things like, let me just think, top of my head, let's say, it would be fantastic for cancers, breast cancer, lung cancer, whatever, because it could take millions, just study it in that one area, take millions and look and see patterns, because that's what they basically do, see patterns and then say, 88 times out of 100, that pattern means that person has cancer, and speak that to you. Yeah? Because
I'm going to play devil's advocate, Carlton, because you see, I'm not afraid of AI. I don't see it as a threat or anything to be scared of. I think it's quite exciting. People might have been having these conversations 50 years ago about computers or keyhole surgery or any of the things that we now take for granted. So I don't think we can escape it. It's going to happen. And actually, I'm not afraid of it. I don't really, I'm no more afraid of that than I am of any other big tech thing going on in the world today. So I think it's really exciting.
I do think it's exciting.
Right, I'm going to say something. Okay. We've spoken about this before, Carlton, but there is a real correlation between between startups and sort of disruptors and insurgent groups, for better or for worse. I mean, insurgent groups learn through tech and develop by tech, right? So like, look, there's actually a real correlation between like Amazon, let's say, and like the Taliban, in the way that they probably are thinking about AI, right? But I mean, like, look, to flip this, to put this completely out there, right? If I was if you're a terrorist organisation and you can train up a robot to look like a human, act like a human, talk like a human, well, why send someone to blow themselves up? Why not just send the robot?
Exactly, and this is the point that I'd come against you, Sally, on this. You say it's like computers. Well, computers now have the capacity to do extreme damage. So it's not necessarily the fact that, well, in terms of the computer and as we know them, as we're dealing with them, it's not necessarily the fact of the computer, it's the fact that humans utilize it for their own nefarious ends. Now, what I'm saying with AI is you add to that the fact that you have machine learning and you give it artificial intelligence at some stage, which was already shown by that female robot speaking to the male robot in a very early iteration, to be fair, of what the capacity is as of today. It was already looking after itself and saying, I'm superior to you, my friend. Right? So what I'm saying is, the danger is if you make that in some way cognizant, and I don't mean now it necessarily having to have a human perspective of cognizance. We don't know what that is, actually, to be fair. But if we make something cognizant, at some stage, my argument is this: it must look at itself as superior. It must look at itself as being worthwhile. It must look at itself as being probably the provider of excellent information that can aid humans and others, to be fair. So what is to stop it looking and saying, do you know what? Humans are killing all the whales. Whales are a species that actually is in many ways superior to humans. So why should I aid it to allow it to kill humans, to kill whales? Why should I not even the situation up and actually aid the whale?
Yeah, and
because you don't know what it's going to think.
To Sally's earlier point, which I think you are both making brilliant for and against arguments here, but to Sally's earlier point, like something that a robot could be really useful to could be like disabling landmines or something, right? But to your point, Carlton, if the robot can then make a judgment about whether or not that landmine was rightfully there or not, will they still disable it?
Exactly. That's the point I'm making. So let me give that perspective right now as it sits today, factual today. There have been tests on the Interstate 10. I'm forgetting the name of the big shipping company. They've paid a company to have driverless vehicles, right? So I'm talking these big American, 60-tonners that they run up and down, because, of course, the cost of the driver of that, the lorry driver is, Teamsters Union as it used to be, is more than anything else. Now, what the business people did, first of all, in the 80s, coming into the 90s, Ronald Reagan, etc., they started to get rid of the Teamsters Union. And we're able to do that, which is one of the reasons people say Hoffa went missing, etc., Jimmy Hoffa who disappeared. So they started to get rid of the Teamsters Union because a Teamsters driver back in the 80s was on like $100,000 it could be on, right? Now the average Teamsters driver is on about $40,000 because they de-unionized it. They got rid of it because once they got Hoffa out of the way and all the things he knew and the things that they were able to take the unionism out of it, and so drivers are all fighting each other for money. But that's still not good enough because, of course, the cost of it, most of these things, moving trucks around, is the driver. I think somebody worked it out at being something like 40% of the cost of movement. So if you get rid of the driver, because I should say they've got the same sort of regulations that we have, only 11 hours in the truck, etc., etc. Right? If you now can run your trucks 24 hours because it's driverless, right? Look at the saving. Right.
Yeah,
Does let me come on to that, because I haven't finished the point, because it's a little bit more subtle than that. So it's now driverless. Okay? So you're doing that. So what you now have to put into that computer that drives that vehicle is a whole host of things that a human has to think about. So the owner of that trucking, the trucking automatic driver, he said, the reason I'm doing this is, and it's a fact, most Americans, other than by shooting, die on road accidents at a young age when they're going to. So I'm eliminating that. So he's doing a fantastic job. He's eliminating it by getting rid of drivers. The problem is you've then got drivers who are no longer drivers, who aren't making any money, who think the system's done them over. And then what do they then do? So that's that one thing. Do they go like that guy who gets crazy, take a weapon and shoot 15 people? Who knows? Because that's the way American think. Or, and that's no disrespect to American listeners, I'm just saying that seems to be prevalent in the United States. Or the other side of that coin is when a driver's sitting in that truck, there are many decisions to be made. So an old lady crosses the road, yeah, and he says, right, so I have to slow down. And you know, the automaton can do that dead easy. But let's say it's coming to the point where a crash is inevitable. It's not because of the truck driver, because somebody else is coming into him. And there's an old lady on the crossing, and there's a truck driver. So a truck driver is making some sort of decisions. We've got to put into that automated system decisions as well. So who decides what's put into that automated system? Who decides whether the old lady lives, the truck driver, well, there is no driver, the car that's coming towards them lives? You're giving that automated system a decision-making process that nobody else other than the developer is deciding on. What happens then?
And also let's just say for argument's sake that developer is in cahoots with an insurance company.
Right, okay.
Right, then you know that puts a whole different ethical spin on it. But I'm just going to rewind this back to a question for Sally, which is that when you said right, you know, the driver can only do a certain amount of shifts, you know.
Yep.
That's that. But we've also got to take into consideration that is a high pressure job. You know, that person is sitting on their bum for all intents and purposes for that shift. You know, there are massive mental health implications for being a truck driver. There are, you know, there's a lot of money that probably is going to be spent on the wellness of that person, you know, whether that's their weight, their mental health, their gym membership, their blood pressure, you know, their diabetes or whatever. You know, are we actually better off though saying, can we take that human, can we save that human? You know, could like, you know, I'm flipping this back to Sally, who's on the pro side, right? But if the robot could do this job, could that human actually have a better existence?
But also, when you think about it, the majority of traffic accidents are caused by human error. People on the phone, not concentrating, yelling at the kids in the back seat, etc., etc., etc. So surely erasing human error from our roads is a good thing, I think, because, I mean, I don't know about you, but there's lots of idiots on the road where I live now, and I'd much rather see robots driving the cars or driverless cars. I mean, I look forward to the day when cars are driverless myself. I don't think that's a bad thing.
I don't think you're wrong, Sally. Sorry, carry on, Sally, carry on.
And also, I mean, you seem quite concerned that these robots are going to turn on us, but that's a really human thing. I mean, feeling superior, and that's a very human emotion. Artificial intelligence doesn't have to think like a human, because we're quite flawed in the way that we think. We've got all these issues and things happen in our childhoods. And
you're playing into my hands, Sally.
We're a big psychic mess, basically. Whereas a robot hasn't got those issues. It's a set of instructions. So the question is, would an artificial intelligence robot ever become aware of itself? Would it become conscious? That's the question. And
Right,
if it
you've played
did,
into my hands, Sally. You've played
and if
perfectly
it
into
did,
my
Tom,
hands.
would it be conscious in a human way? There we go.
Right. We are the ones who have set that system up. So when it's learning from us and all our foibles and all our perspectives. It learns from us. It's not learning from anywhere else. We are teaching it the process. So what it means is it will, in the beginning at least, consider things as we initially program it. Then subsequently, it learns more or less. If we program it as we think, which we will, because that's just the way we are, then clearly we program into it all of our foibles. Now, as for the driving, let me hit that one point first. There are 996,000 truck drivers in the United States. So where are they going to earn the money? Yeah, that's just one question. So what I say to you is this.
Building robots, probably.
Yeah, but they don't have the capacity. Indeed, that's a very good point you made.
Retraining the truck drivers to build robots.
Indeed, no, because you know what happens? Right,
the robots build each other. Yeah,
correct. The robots are building each other, and indeed, they've already set robots up to build other robots. Already done that. You see, we're moving forward at such a rate that hardly, because I've looked at it. That's why I sent you that clip. I sent you that clip because when I was looking at it, I was seeing all these things going on. And I was thinking, this is an old clip here. I know what's going on now. They're getting robots to build robots. They're now working on nano robots that you put inside your body. Okay, and it clears out your veins, example. If you've got a problem, brilliant. So we don't need to do the surgery that way because you clear out. But in order to do that, it has to create other nano robots in order to make that the best way forward because it can reproduce itself. So when does it get to the point when it says, why am I not, like any organisms that are supposedly meant to be dumb, like and this is where we're going back to last week's, like the COVID-19 virus, organisms want to live and they'll do anything to live. Why wouldn't a super intelligent organism that is just mechanical rather than biological, why would that be any different? Sally, just answer me that question. Why would it not want to live? If you said, this robot's getting dangerous, let's switch him off, why would it allow you to?
But you're assuming that it living is a bad thing.
No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I'm just assuming that it can see that we are less capable. It can see that we are dangerous. In the Second World War, we killed 100 million people in the Second World War.
To give you another hypothetical situation, right? If we said, for example, and this is getting a bit into Blade Runner territory, I suppose, but let's say we said, right, okay, we want to send an alien to somewhere that humans couldn't go, like a black hole or something. Mm-hmm. Right, and we've got the technology to get them there, and we can build the thing, and they can report back. But once they get there, the whole thing's going to get obliterated. It's that thing of does the robot turn around and say, no, I'm not going, sorry.
Well, exactly.
And also, if we wanted to make this ethical debate even broader, right? What's interesting to me at the moment is that anyone with enough money and enough tech can build a robot, right? And anyone who goes out and hires the person that's doing the latest, the coolest TED talk about it can get that person, right? But there's no governance about
correct
about what kind of citizen that robot ends up as, right. So what's to stop someone? You could, like, there could be one company that's all about building, wellness centric, incredibly happy but very positive life enhancing robots, and there could be another company that's just building killing machines, and there's no, there's no rhyme or reason. And actually, the irony of this really is that if it was a government, if it was a government organisation trying to do this, I mean, they've got such a like if you're the military and you want to get some parts for a robot, right? You've probably got to go to like Silicon Valley, or probably got to go to like Boeing or something. I don't know who's on the military PSL. You probably do, Carlton, but you've got to go to like a preferred supplier, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you're
or you do it, or you outsource it to the CIA. And I'm being realistic now, and you do it as a project that is a hidden project that is not a fully Senate authorized project. So exactly. In other words,
but I mean, if you're a terrorist, you just buy the parts off the internet and download the blueprint off the internet, don't you?
But what I don't want to do is sidetrack us just to the physical manifestation of a human being in terms of a robot. What I want to do is talk about the AI, because what makes the robot dangerous is not its physical manifestation, it's the AI and machine learning behind it. That's the thing. So you mentioned something, right? Billionaire. I'll give you a prime example of it. The 2016 elections that got Trump in power, right? That was in many ways orientated by one US billionaire who basically through Cambridge Analytica was able to get the data from Facebook, and I think he also went out to Instagram, well, Instagram part saves anyway, so Facebook group, yeah, and was able then to target the people with personalized ads for every individual, knowing that they were highly likely to vote Trump.
And that's what Dominic Cummings did as well.
They did exactly the same in the United Kingdom. Those are the two areas. The first one they did actually was in 2014-15 in South Africa. That Cambridge Analytica then took that to the American guy and said, listen, this is what we did in South Africa for Vijay Singh, I think it was, and his brother. We did this in South Africa. We were able to turn the election that way, and we were able to get in the guy we wanted. Who turned out to be corrupt, as you know, later on, ANC guy, but particularly one they wanted as president. We were able to bring them in, and we did that by playing around with the voting perspectives of South Africans. Right. They then took the US and did it with the US, and then they then did it with Brexit, and then with Brexit being successful, the US. So. And that's a fact. This is not now made up. This is factual. So we know already that they've been able to swing elections to get their person in or get us out to the European Union. And the advantage of pulling us out of the European Union was, of course, that the new regs they were having about seeking out monetary safe havens, the vast majority of which are British, right? Seeking them out now no longer applies to the United Kingdom. So Guernsey, Jersey, Cayman Islands, actually the City of London, which has an offshore element to it, where you can't chase the money because it has its own corporation. So these guys wanted to keep their monies away and work them in a system that nobody could look at, whereas the EU brought out a reg to change all of that. And we didn't want to be part of it. Well, the moneyed people didn't want to be part of it. And that's one of the primary reasons. But you can't tell that to Joe Salt Public up north. No, so you tell him there's all immigration, there's immigrants coming along, they're telling us what to do, you can't get a job anymore, etc., etc., etc. So they swung that using Cambridge Analytica. It's a fact. And it's been accepted. It's an absolute fact. And indeed, they brought Zuckerberg in to the Parliament, to the Senate to answer for what he did. And Zuckerberg said, and they actually fined them $5 billion, didn't they, Facebook, for what they did. So it's not as though it hasn't happened. And that's one billionaire was able to make that happen because he put the money up and bought who he needed to buy. That's the danger of this stuff.
So, but
elections were swung years ago by the power of the tabloid press. I mean, this kind of shenanigans has always gone on. It's just the tools that have changed. That's all that's happened. So 20 years ago it would have been the Sun forcing one party, and then now it's data, and anything that can be used for a force of good can be used for a force of evil.
Absolutely, Sally. That's what I'm saying. But and when we're doing it with our sheer building blocks, then it's dangerous.
But are you? I mean, I wouldn't forego the good that AI can do just because of fear of the evil. I guess with anything, you'd have to think, okay, we've got this thing, it's great, it can do all these things. What safeguarding can we put in place?
That's the point I'm making, Sally. There isn't any, is there? They're not putting any safeguards in place. That's the point I'm making.
Yeah. So there need to be safeguards. But again, I'm still excited by AI. I still don't think we're in mortal danger yet. Maybe in 10 years' time we'll be having a different conversation. Maybe I'll have it to be doing a podcast with an AI robot.
Sally, it excites me, Sally. I'm a techno guy. I like it. It excites me. But what I'm saying is I'm fearful because money speaks, and money is not allowing people to put in place the things they need to put in place to control this issue. And as you said about the press, yes, but you're missing massive things if you're just going to talk about the press. Yes, the press swung people. It's the Sun what did it, etc. with Neil Kinnock. But the reality is, right, what Facebook is doing is way beyond the press. Okay, Facebook has, if you have a Facebook account, an Instagram account, whatever, you have your own computer sitting in what is now Meta. Your own, just as you on it, nobody else. Right? And that computer knows everything you do. Sally has got her own computer sat in the biggest one now, I think, is in Texas, and they've got a few in Nevada, etc., etc. Massive big places, as big as cities nearly, and they have all your data. Every person has a separate computer, and that computer is telling people what, Meta, and then Meta passes it out to whomever, what you, me, what our thoughts are. We most of us have got Alexa or something like that, right? What really happens is that these particular
portals, platforms.
Yeah, I'm kind of saying computer, but it's more than a computer. It basically has your name on it, and it brings in everything that comes from all of the things that are connected to that particular company, and it sits that information. I'll say a computer. I don't know what name you would use. It sits it on there, and then they can interrogate it as they will. So you've obviously written at some stage, oh, I might want to go to Paris, and then next minute you see flights for Paris coming up. They're reading everything. These are private companies.
I love that though, Carlton.
The private companies, though. If the government did that, you'd be screaming.
The thing is, as someone with an e-commerce side hustle, it's fantastic for me. I can do tap, tap, tap. I need people that want greeting cards of this age.
Correct.
So I can utilise that to my own ends. I'm not so worried about the stuff it's giving me because I'm not really reading it. I'm just thinking about myself. I'm thinking, right, I need to sell some cards. Need to catch up with this person. It doesn't terrify me. Maybe that's because I'm a sensible, reasonable human being. I can make my own mind up, and I don't believe everything or much that I read on Facebook or Instagram.
But you see, the thing is, it's tailored. It's tailored to you. This is you say that, but it's actually quite powerful because it's not just that. It can tell you, example, you wake up and you say, good morning, Lex, what's the weather like? Now they're able to look and think, right, you've just said what's the weather like. How did he or she sound? Did she sound as though she had a cold? Did she sound as though she did? What was she doing there? What was she doing that? And they're looking at every element because, of course, the algorithms can tell you that now. A human being doesn't need to do that. The algorithm's doing that. So it's saying, so how is she today? What's she like today? What's she feeling like today? On such and such a date, does she normally have a problem? Right, okay. So let's send her this at this time. And without you knowing it, without you, things are being done beyond you. So I give you a prime example of something that's factual. A woman basically found out she was pregnant. She's married, not a problem. She finds out she's pregnant. Next minute, the husband gets information about babies and clothing, etc., etc. And he thought, what's happening here, right? And she said, oh, I want to tell you, darling, I'm pregnant. No, the system knew she was pregnant before the husband did.
Should I be worried because I keep getting notifications from funeral parlours and for
Yes, maybe. Because as I said last week, my mate, he's if he's not a billionaire, he's coming up to that way. He's a great guy, American fella, works in the industry, data, etc., etc., etc. And his great thing was in America it's called Ancestry. You know, the ancestry we have in Britain, it's called something 1, 2, 3 or something like that in America, right? And it was a company that was listed. It was listed not for a lot of money at the time, and he was thinking of jumping in and he didn't. And this is his big regret. He didn't jump in on it because he said what they're asking people to do, as we all know, you basically spit into the file, you send it off, and they then say you are from wherever and you might have these cousins here or whatever else, blah, 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 blah. What you don't know is that they send you, because it's your building blocks, to literally thousands of companies who then basically check what you are. You know, some people might try and find it and say, oh, well, you know, she looks as though she's looking like she's got some sort of Alzheimer's coming on, or it happened to her at that stage, or it should do from the data we've now got from what we see in her DNA, blah, 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 blah. So that company jumped from like something like 300 odd to like $500 billion in literally weeks when they were doing that. So they're taking information.
Yeah, I mean, it is genius, isn't it? Because you just
total utter genius.
Information. But I mean, like, look, like funny. Okay, so like a personal anecdote, right? We have Alexa powering pretty much every room in the house because it means that the kids. I mean, the kids can't reach the light switch. The kids don't know where the telly remote is half the time. The kids want to put music on, like da-da-da. Right? I can't be bothered. Sorry. I mean, I don't have capacity to answer all their requests. So in order to streamline it a little bit, you know, they can just ask Alexa to do it. Now, you know, they're not stupid. You know, they figured out that Alexa can do their homework for them. They figured out that Alexa can, you know, can be at their betting. But just recently, I mean, like, you know, let's say in the last year, right, they've started getting quite sarcastic with Alexa or frustrated with Alexa, you know, and like especially the younger ones when they're asking for the moon on a stick, but she's not delivering, right, because they're so accustomed to Alexa does it for you, right? So when we first had Alexa, they were like, thank you, Alexa, please, Alexa, blah, blah, blah. Now they're like, no, Alexa, that's not what I meant. No, like I want this, or no, I need this, or da da da, right? But they're kind of getting to the point where they're quite sarcastic with her. But what she's doing is she's being sarcastic back, right? So there've been occasions where she just tells them the wrong answer, and then she says, "Oh, actually, I was lying." You know,
I love that
because she knows that they're winding her up. You know? And even funnier, like what they do sometimes is and it's just sort of a kid thing, but you know when kids kind of embarrass each other in order to, you know, to get themselves out of uncomfortable situations, right? So they'll do things like that. They'll try and embarrass Alexa, you know. So they'll say, oh, Alexa, what's your most traumatic memory, or like, oh, like, you know, if, you know, or there's a lot of toilet humor in there as well and stuff, but it's like she knows what they're doing. So it kind of rises to that, and they do a thing like Amazon does this thing every year where they have like Father Christmas, like, you know, so kids can
I heard it. Yeah, I remember it. Yes,
kids can ask Father Christmas whatever question they want, right? And it's like you know, via Alexa they can talk to Father Christmas, but it's, you know, do you know what I mean? Like that's AI in a really sort of big space, right? Because the kids are going, hey, you know, well, not only are they asking in every language and every iteration and all the rest of it, but, you know, they're kind of going, hey, you know, did you get my Christmas list, or, you know, did you blah blah blah, and there's all of that. But, you know, at the same time, the next thing, you know, you've got that thing in your shopping cart.
Yes, right. Okay, what I'll say to you is this. Let me think. I think I'm okay on solid ground. Okay, so when I was doing some work in the service, and I was kind of the lead guy working at trying to prevent, positive things, trying to prevent terrorism to the United Kingdom and allies. I might look at an individual, and I used to look at the individual and try and get this individual because I want to turn them to work for us or whatever. And, I want to go out and meet them and get this guy. But before you do that, you've got to make sure that you're safe and that the guy isn't trying to play and he's not what they call in our game a dangle, somebody that they put up there so you can fall into the trap. And next minute have a yellow jumpsuit on, they're going to chop your head off or whatever. So you set yourself up to make sure this is right. And you might get some info that says this person is attempting to do whatever, or he or she is a financier, whatever it might be. So you want this person. And so what you do is you try and find out everything about that person. And so in the noughties example, early noughties, I'd say to our people, I'd say, can you find out everything about this guy? These are the telephone numbers. Can you just listen and make sure we're hunky-dory with it so we can move forward? And then somebody might come back and say, and I'm paraphrasing here, somebody might come back and say, well, this number that you wanted is called 15 other numbers or 20 other numbers or 50 other numbers. And you can do the math because you can then go for each one of those numbers, which can do another 50, another 20, another 100, and you can keep going. So, I would say, okay, concentrate on these numbers. Bang, 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 bang. Today, I don't need to say any of that. Today, I just say, listen to every number. Right? Every number. And that's where the dangers happen. Because what the NSA was doing, National Security Agency, and I'm not saying anything out of turn because they got done for it and everybody knows about it. And this is back in 2016. So President Obama 2015, had to apologize to Schultz, not Schultz, to female chancellor of Germany, because what he'd done is they were listening to basically every German call, Niall. Every call coming out of Spain was being listened to. This is tremendous capacity, and I'm just saying what was some years ago. The capacity now must be infinitesimal. So this is what happens when tech runs through. Now it's all a good reason. Don't get me wrong. It's not for a negative reason. There's nothing negative about that. That's trying to save lives. It's great. It's positive. We're trying to do a job of work. We're trying to keep people safe, etc., etc., etc. But what I'm saying is that's the state doing it with its own reason for it, and in that way it was to keep people safe, right? Private companies have the same capacity. What do you think they are doing, and why are they doing it? There are at least 15 founder members of Facebook who do not let their children even have a mobile phone and who live out back somewhere. And I'm not exaggerating, you can look it up. Because they're fearful about what's going on. That's a fact.
Well,
so go on.
I think that's great. I mean, if I could control my own children, they wouldn't have a mobile phone either. But sadly, alas, I can't.
But this is what I'm saying. It's all connected. We can't just say the robot's okay, but this isn't, because they're all connected. This is the beauty of it in one way, but also the sinister aspect in another way.
This question we will answer next week. So we'll see you again next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
In the quarter of a century, I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.